master of flow, the one and only Mr. Oren Harris. Welcome to the show, my brother.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to drop in with you here live.
Oh, absolutely. So Oren, you're in Topanga. Is that what you're saying? That's where you're joining us from today?
Topanga, California, up in the mountains, just 20 minutes outside of the city life.
Mm, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Living that got lots of nature around you.
Yeah. Swarmed with just like vibrant nature, trees, mountains. I met my partner in Kauai about 3.5 years ago, and we were searching around for a place that we wanted to live because I love nature. She loves nature. And I also love access to the city, culture, diversity, options. And so Topanga is like the perfect meeting point for us.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, so Oren, when we talk about flow, I could literally talk about this all day, as I know you can. Um, but when we talk about flow, I think there's so many layers to it other than what a lot of people might initially think, which is, oh, just go with the flow. Life just has to be in flow, otherwise something's wrong. But I literally think that flow is such a key to the next level of our growth. Would you
Yes, I agree 100%. And collectively, I feel like it's a key to the next stage of human evolution itself.
agree? I totally agree. I totally agree with you. So, how did you come to this point where you are right now? I just want to dive in just a little bit, just on you, because I've been checking you out and seeing what you're doing and the flow, master of love. How did you get to this point that it's like, man, this is my calling, at least for right now?
Yeah, many, many years ago. I mean, there's been several significant moments in my life of breakdown, breakthrough. Sometimes I describe it as like a death and a rebirth, like literally being reborn and a new level of identity. Um, Several significant things happening throughout my life. But if I go back early on to two things, one is I was in love and in a relationship, and I thought I was going to get married and do the whole thing. And just, I mean, I won't get into the details right now, but like the relationship completely broke down, like due to catastrophic events, not inside the relationship, but our relationship really broke down. And to me, that was not only heartbreaking, but it broke something open inside me
Mm.
where I started questioning my sense of self, questioning life, asking these deeper questions. And in that same period of time, as I was having illumination, revelation, kind of discovering things about myself, being able to see, my own mind and the workings of my mind and what I was calling myself, as this kind of awakening was happening, I started asking questions about why am I here? What's my deeper purpose? What am I put on this planet to do? What's my calling? And I had a company at the time, and I went into had lunch with this woman who was a really successful entrepreneur, and I said, "What do you attribute your success to?" And she said, the usual suspects, great management and focus and blah 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 blah. And she said, but most of all, my life coach. And I'd heard the term life coach, but I didn't really know what it was. And I think at that time, it was mainly like executive coaching, and it hadn't gained popularity yet. And she gave me his card. She said, you should go check this guy out. So I did. I was curious. And I went to see this guy, and I was sharing with him what was going on in my business. I had started a business, and the business started breaking down. And long story short, that session, that one conversation, continued a revelation that already started from the breakdown in the relationship. And I really started deeply asking, like, why am I here? Who am I? And I had a revelation. And one revelation I had was that this coaching thing, this life coaching thing, I was like, oh, I am that. And I saw it throughout all the periods of my life from when I was little. People were always drawn to me for guidance. Even when I was a teenager and, being a semi-bad ass teenager, I was like the oracle in my
Yeah.
group of friends. And I saw this pattern, this thread, and I was like, oh, whatever that is, it's something that's core and essential to me. So I literally decided, I spoke the word. I was like, I am that because I realized I was it. I wasn't seeking to be a life coach. I realized that that was part of my essence, part of why I was here, part of the essence of my gifts. And so I created the form by saying, I am a life coach. So that's how I started coaching. And fast forward a little bit, I had had a great conversation with two friends that were both really successful coaches, and I was picking their brain, kind of like I was picking this woman's brain. And they said, if you're a great speaker and you add value, that's a great way to build a coaching practice. Are we good? I don't know how much of the
No, we're
granular
good. We're
detail.
good. Absolutely. Yeah, you keep going. This is good.
Okay, okay, all right. So,
I'll interrupt if need be, but no, this is good. This is yeah, absolutely.
okay, awesome. So I decided to go to Toastmasters, which is a public speaking organization. They teach you the art of speaking to hone and master your craft. I go to this Toastmasters meeting to try out this speaking thing. And I signed up to do my icebreaker, which is my first talk. I signed up for it on my first meeting. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to dive right in. So I
Yep.
go home and I write out this talk, and it was called Who Am I? And I was like, okay, who am I? If you would have asked me a few years ago, I'd have said, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a coach because I used to be a teacher and a coach. And I said, but is that really who I am? So I write this speech out. I'm walking around in my apartment, pacing around. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Practicing, I'm videoing myself. And I was literally felt like a hot mess, meaning I was just like nervous and anxious, and I wasn't even on stage yet. And I literally thought to myself, Sean, I don't know about this speaking thing. I hadn't even started, and I was like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, let's shut this down. This will
Let's
keep
just let's just shut this down before it even starts. So something deep in my soul, I don't, it just came from inside me. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna go try to do a good talk. I was this prayer came to me, and I'm paraphrasing because this was many years ago. It was like, Dear God, I give this talk to you. I give
yeah.
this to the place inside myself where I'm most authentically myself. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go try to do a good talk or performance. I'm going to go up there, do the thing, get it over with, and move on with my life. So I thought. So I go to the Toastmasters. I get up on stage. They introduce me. I didn't even bring any notes. I take a deep breath and I start my talk. Who am I? And I went through the whole talk. It was like a blink of an eye. And then it was like, I got a standing ovation. And I was so present, but at the same time, I was kind of in the background. And I was like, they have no idea I was this guy pacing around like a hot mess in my apartment. So it was surreal because everybody's just like, "Wah." So then I
So
go sit down in the back of the room and I'm just processing this. And I get this basket full of feedback slips, people writing feedback, right? Because that was part of the practice. And I'm reading these things and it's like amazing talk, great talk, really moved, made me cry, amazing, phenomenal, best icebreaker I've ever heard. The president of the club compared me to Martin Luther King. So I'm like, what is going on here? Then afterwards, at the end of the meeting, people were coming up to me and saying thank you and making comments. And it's like they were trying to put words to something they experienced, almost fumbling over their words in some cases. And
totally.
they were like, wow, like looking at me like I'm an alien or just some, just like, who are
What
you?
has happened here? Yeah.
What happened here? So I left and went home that day, and I asked that question. I was like, what happened here? We're like, what happened? And this was like another revelation, just like I realized the essence of being a coach was already part of me. A couple of things I realized. One is at the end of the day, everyone really just wants to be themselves and feel good about it, feel a sense of honor in who they are. And because I was willing to bare my heart and my soul and be myself fully, it wasn't just the words that I was speaking, it was the frequency. My heart was speaking to their heart. My spirit was igniting and speaking to their spirit. And I'm like, that's what this reflection I was getting from people, I'm like, oh, that's what that was. That's what happened. And then I was like, okay. Oh, and then I had another memory of being an athlete and being in the zone, which then later started
Mm.
calling the flow state. And I was like, oh, this is very similar. Time slows down.
Interesting. Totally. So I just want to jump in on just a few
Please.
things that I'm hearing because, Oren, I love this. This is so good because I really relate because I was also that little boy who, others just seem to come to me for their problems or
Right.
take their problems. And I'm like, hey, I don't know. I don't do, this or that. And it was just a natural thing. And I had no clue. And
Right.
it was the same thing for me. The one of the largest fears was actually being in front of people and talking because I
Right.
had a
Right.
lot of like traumas around. I was like, no, this definitely can't be for me. No, there's got to be something else. And I actually tried to avoid it also. And life got very difficult. So what I'm hearing is, this essence, and I speak about essence as well. So I love how we're like connecting on, even the terminology.
Hmm.
Um, but what I find really interesting about this flow, Oren, is it. I even pictured this acorn. It's like it's there. That essence is in the acorn, but it still has to go to the oak tree to
Right.
be who it really is in full like blossom and bloom. Would you
Right.
agree? So
Yeah.
there's some work to it too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think part of that work is what I was describing as like a death and a rebirth. You know what I mean? It's like a death of identity and who we think ourselves to be. And then, the emergence of more of us, our true self, our soul self, our authentic self, our unconditioned self. It's like it's coming up in this birth more. And it's like, ooh, then we're accessing more of who we are. And it's usually pressure, adversity, challenge that ignites that process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, just talking about relationships. Yeah, it took me, I consider myself a little bit thick, it took me a little bit. It took me two marriages to realize that I wasn't able to even see like the feminine. I was stuck in, just seeing the masculine. And it wasn't even the whole masculine. It was like, sort of, and I don't want to throw out these terms of wounded masculine and all that, but it was like I couldn't see in these relationships what the opportunity was for me. And so I avoided a lot of those like those death moments,
Mm,
not realizing that uncomfortableness it was about to shoot me into the next level that was already here. If
right.
I had the courage and the bravery to just like dissolve into it a little bit.
100%. It reminds me of a quote. I think it's from Rumi. Oh no, actually, it's from me. Or
I
came
heard this amazing quote. It was from this, this genius.
from this mystic, ancient genius. Oh, wait a minute, that was me.
Love it.
Life is not trying to break you; it's trying to break you open.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I love
And
that.
I think that Rumi said, you have to keep breaking your heart until it opens.
And isn't that like one of the hardest things? Stuff happens out here, before our eyes, and it's like our heart closes, and we
Right.
have to like get good at opening back up.
Right. And to go along with this quote, this idea, perhaps the point of the breaking is also the opening. So there's working to open our heart back up,
That's right.
and there's recognizing that we are being opened
That's
more,
yes. 1,000%
right?
love it.
Not
Love.
not 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 even just like open back to the shape that we were before the heartbreak, right?
Right. Exactly.
It's like
Exactly.
it's like, oh, opened to me when we heal from heartbreak, even ideally we integrate whatever lessons and wisdom such that we return to innocence, right? And back into relaxed open-heartedness. Because to the degree that that process doesn't thoroughly happen, then our wisdom becomes hardened and like controlled wisdom's like, ooh, I learned. So then now it's the ego going, now I have more knowledge and information to protect myself better in the future. And that's the lesson, right? To make sure I don't get my heart broken again. But that to me is not true wisdom.
Yes.
And it's exhausting because we're like, we're under the governance of our survival center or our ego, like that wants to protect us. And I think that that's a really important distinction to see that, okay, when we learn from our lessons, it doesn't necessarily mean that we've become wiser, because if it brings us into more control and more defense and more protection, I don't think that's wisdom. And it doesn't allow our heart to relax open.
Relax, open. Oh my gosh, this is so great, because one of the biggest questions that I get, or I hear, even amongst our group here that's watching us, which is mostly high achievers who are looking for more balance and joy with their outer success. One of the biggest challenges, Oren, and maybe you see this too with your coaching and your clients, is they think something's wrong if they don't get the result out here. If the business transaction didn't go through, or they hit roadblocks, and it's like, oh, maybe I'm not in flow. But I love what you just said, because that was even one of the questions that was coming to me around today was, oh my gosh, what we're really looking for to open our heart in this wisdom piece is the understanding that we get, whether it was a positive or a negative out here, whether it was good or bad. Did we get an understanding, which means,
Right.
something opened even a little more?
Right.
Would you agree
Exactly.
with that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And to me, that that opening, to tie it to success and to performance even, or like achievement and fulfillment, it's the opening of the heart that allows us to fully feel, which allows us to be fulfilled, right? And this is why if we succeed at something, anything, but we are tight and hardened, then we all know that we could be still feel empty, be like, why does this not feel as amazing as I thought it would? Or just have a temp. So to be filled, to be fulfilled, to be satisfied, to actually experience in your body your success,
Mm,
right, requires us to be open and to feel. Right. And
totally.
not only is that a significant ingredient in success, in my opinion, but it's also a significant performance factor. Like how open we are is also dictating how much current and power can flow through our vessel. And, that's why when we're in a flow state, whether we're thinking about it this way or not, when we're in a flow state, somehow, some way, that self or that part of ourself that's in defense and in survival, it's calmed, it's taken the passenger seat, which allows us to open, allows our consciousness to expand, and it allows more of the rest of our power to actually manifest, which is why we feel like a superhero. We're like, whoa, where did this extra senses and extra abilities and talent, and why am I like the next level version of myself? You see, that's how. But I think what I think is interesting about what we're illuminating here is we're tying the piece of the heart into performance, which doesn't always get put in the conversation or the equation of high performance.
Love it. Love it. Because that's exactly where I wanted to go next. So bang on. I think that this next level of high performance that we're being led into is not just the masculine, get it done, and build a structure so we can like keep it. And like, it's like, it's totally the opposite. It's the other side of the coin. It's the other side. And it's a higher frequency energy that's not push, but it's more pull, which means through an expansion, it like gets pulled through us as we open up.
Right. Right. It's like I call it sometimes the difference between hustle mode and flow mode, right? Hustle mode, I mean, we're talking about a way of being, but hustle mode and the way that it gets portrayed and the way that we often experience it, there's a certain there's like a proportion of like human will and divine will, right? Or identity and spirit, right?
Yes.
You can channel a lot of that energy of like motivation, determination, this masculine energy. And I mean, I wish we could actually see this on a graph, but there's usually a percentage of it, some of it that's flowing through the ego structure or the persona, right?
Yes.
Which is inherently going to limit that power. It has to, because because our ego structure, our persona is not just in the pure stream of masculine energy going towards the goal. It has sub goals. It has other agendas like significance, like, not looking like a failure, like not getting embarrassed. So that extra energy is power, right? It's power. I remember I was talking with this, um, high level CEO, and he was going through this huge challenge with this company during COVID. And he's just like, trying to put out fires, and he was just having a meltdown, and his wife said, you should call Oren. And he's in his mind, he's like, I'm busy, like I'm so behind and so much to do. And she's like, that's why you should call him. Which, by the way, his name is Oren. Side note, he's white and they're Jewish, and their whole family calls me the Black Oren. But I digress. Anyway, so I'm having this conversation with him, and I said, what's going on? And he said, oh man, just things are falling apart. So I'm putting this in the context of performance, and hopefully I can tie it right back to the heart here. So he shares with me what's going on, what his objectives are, what he's trying to accomplish. And I asked him, I said, how are you feeling? He's like, oh, I'm just frustrated. And so he's feeling kind of, but you see, he's feeling and his mind is still solving. So from his perspective, he might think, oh no, I'm fully feeling. It's like, no, 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 you're feeling and you're thinking. So you're in resistance to your feeling and you're feeling. So I
1,000%.
I said, let's just feel frustrated for a moment and let yourself feel whatever you're feeling. Just for a moment. Take away trying to solve, fix, change, improve anything, and just feel. So he starts feeling the frustration. Of course, it got louder because he's not resisting it anymore. And so as it's getting louder, it's clearing out space. Then I said, how do you feel? He's like, man, I just feel, and I could feel this other feeling beneath the frustration arising in him. And he's like, I just don't know what to do. And I said, how do you feel about the fact that you don't know how to solve this? And then the other layer of feeling came, and it was shame.
Mm-hmm.
It was shame. And then I was just being with him. in a space of love with the shame. Again, not trying to fix it or change it or solve it, but just to bear witness to the shame that came from his childhood. And then that energy starts moving. So see, now he's not using his power to manage these feelings beneath the surface. So what's happening is his heart's opening and it's actually liberating more of his power. It's opening his consciousness. And within 5 minutes, he came up with an idea to solve the problem he'd been trying to solve for 2 months. And I was correlating it back to performance. And then after that happened, I gave it back to his brain to explain what happened so that he would value that process and value the connection between his heart and his, mental capacity and capacity to perform. I said, essentially, what's happened is that you're this badass CEO and you have all of these qualities, determination, drive, vision, resourcefulness. And at some point during your childhood, you got rewarded for being able and capable, and you probably got punished, shamed for not being. And so part of your CEO identity that's actually limiting you right now is not only are you saying, I am capable, but beneath the surface, you're saying, and that makes me valuable and worthy of love. And so then when you don't know what to do,
Mhm.
on one hand, it's like, okay, there you're being smart because you're being resourceful and like just like, hey, do whatever you can, make it happen. It's not that that's wrong, but a lot of your power is also just resisting one moment of, I don't know. And that's okay. That doesn't make me less valuable. I don't know, and that's okay. So that space of that's okay is what opened inside him. And when that space opened up and his heart opened up, then his like infinite intelligence can come through, intuition can come through, solutions can come through because he's not bound inside the identity of I'm a CEO and that means XYZ. And last thing I'll say on this, like I can see this is
Oh,
sparking,
absolutely. Hey,
is that the divine masculine in its purity
yes.
doesn't have identity and beliefs and ideas. It's not seeking significance. It's not deriving importance. It's pure God, masculine creation energy, determination, resourcefulness. I am. So that is so powerful. But when it filters itself through the persona or the identity, we might think we're a badass, especially in today's world, because it's so glorified. And yes, you can on the surface be in the top 1% and be operating in a very kind of ego masculine way and miss this
Oh,
piece. So
yes.
essentially his heart opened, it allows the feminine to integrate and harmonize with the masculine. And to me, that space that opens up, now there's receptivity, there's openness, there's humility, there's more power and resources can come into that space. So anyway, on the
Yes.
roll there, but
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that because you're touching upon the other part of how we started this, which is tapping into your divine potential, which to
right,
me is this essence. And it's these higher qualities, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, that yeah, it's there is no resistance. So what I hear you saying is, instead of just, high performance has been, yeah, I'm a CEO, I'm an artist, I'm a performer, I'm a whatever it might be. And when things get tough, then I'm going to double down, I'm going to
right,
triple down on that.
right,
The other side of the coin to make it open is the, okay, how do I release? Yeah, I can do that, but how do I also release that resistance? And then it's just like whoosh, the essence can come in and it's doing it. It's like, oh my God.
right.
It comes in and boom. I think that's a higher frequency that is like in real time, like live results that are of a higher quality. So I know
Totally.
what you're saying. Oh my God, that's brilliant. That's so good. That
Awesome.
Be- because I think this is exactly where we're going and why things are like hitting roadblocks in business that you're talking about with these high performance CEOs, and where people are feeling the blocks in their body to
Yeah,
take our body to perform at another level, to take
100%.
relationships to another level.
I know at least three. I'm sure there's more, but I know at least three people personally. Um, two of them clients in the last couple of years that are like are very successful in business and financially
Mm,
that had significant financial decline. And
yes,
one of my clients in particular, so you could imagine again, like being a high performer, he's like, all right, I'm down to zero. This is like multimillionaire. I'm down to zero. This is crazy. This is not me, right? So he goes through this period like we often do of like double down, triple down. The me from before. I got to get back in my flow, get back to where I was before,
that's right.
which side note or not side note, insert, I don't think we're meant to necessarily get back in our flow. If we look at the soul evolution of our soul, then flow has levels. And so we might be like, ooh, I'm in my magic and my mojo, and this is the peak. This is the peak of the mountain. And then we decline. We go, ooh, I want to get back there. Sometimes we're being invited to go forward to another level of flow. And as much as we want, oh, that feels better than like dying over here, you're not meant to go backwards. So with my client, part of him was trying to get back to multimillionaire and success. And I'm like, and he called me, thankfully. I was like, dude, that's not the message
Up
here.
the path.
It's not the path. And in fact, if one, you probably couldn't do it. And even if you could, it would
That's
take a
right.
tremendous amount of effort and you would not be fulfilled. And full circle, you would be back in some type of moment like this one
Or
again,
worse. Or worse.
or worse. Right.
I believe it shows up in your body. I believe it's
Yeah.
because to me, I get this image when you're talking that it's like, okay, the acorn, it's like under pressure, it cracks open, and then we're like, no, let's duct tape that sucker back together. Like that's
Right.
no, you got to go to the next level.
Right.
And that to me is sitting in the fire to where it's like, whew, okay, I can't go back. I have to become more the next stage, the next level. So
Exactly. So
found,
with this guy to tie this back to the
yeah,
heart and to look at like heart, mind, body, and soul and being like a fully integrated human, for him, one of the messages was, okay, now you're here at rock bottom, which that's relative, right?
yes,
What is trying to emerge here? And one of the things right in the feeling that the feelings that he was having deep down in his heart, um, one of the things that he was being invited to do was to ask for help, right? That's a heart invitation. And it's not even about ask for help because clearly you need help. It
that's
is
right.
the asking itself and the willingness to be vulnerable and intimate with life and with those around you and with those close to you. So there's something in the alchemy of the asking. If you bring your heart to the table and asking, in this case, it would be for support in whatever ways that he needed it. But that was the actual initiation. And he, thankfully he ran with it. He got it. He got the medicine. He started to see and feel and like let his heart open more to life and to those around him. And so he asked for support in various ways, and it healed something in his heart. And then, of course, I'm like, dude, you already know how to make money. Like that's like obviously you don't even need to focus on that. So as he received that medicine and that gift, which his spirit like helped orchestrate,
Ugh,
then it wasn't even that long after. I mean, he was like, "Oh yeah, I just made $300,000," and it's like, "Well," and he like back up to 1 million, and now he ain't. But now he's not back up to multimillionaire. He's multimillionaire who's fulfilled, who feels more safe in his heart, who's more satisfied, who feels more loved. So he's forward.
Oren, oh my God. This is, I love when this happens, man, because this is exactly what I'm seeing, and where I wanted to go with this. And I love what you're doing. This is brilliant. So I'm just I'm just helping, just repeat what you're saying, just for people
Yes,
listening.
please.
Um, I love that when we talk about tapping our divine potential, and it's not just the money, it's not just the outward relationship, and it's not just a body. It's like the more is not just more money, it's not just more muscle, it's not just more stuff. It's more love, which is an energy. It's more inside that opens. So yeah, there's layers that are building, and it's not just on the outside. It's literally that oak tree that's growing its roots, and now it's producing the fruits with maybe half the effort,
Right.
double the joy or passion.
Yes.
Dude, I love it.
Yes.
I love this. And like, imagine being a high performer in the new, it's not new, but in the world imagine building that life.
Mm, yes. I'm here for it, man.
Oh, and that's what I hear and see with you. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like, how powerful is that? That, like, this is the healing, this is the creating, this is on the new level, like another level.
A
So,
whole other level. That's why I feel like, one of the ways that I look at a flow state too is like as exciting, exhilarating, and profound to our human it is. It's like there's nothing better than this. This is the holy grail. I feel like a flow state in a way is a mini illumination,
mm,
that's a glimpse into a future now version of spiritual human, of human evolution.
that's
And
right.
and then I feel like group flow states, like when you see a group or an athletic team get into a flow state together, or in a drum circle or in a performance, it's like, again, it's breathtaking to witness and to experience. And yes, yes, yes. And for me, I'm looking at that going, I think this is where we're going as humans. Like you see it in nature, schools of fish, birds, they fly. I'm like, nature is like, the clues are right
It's
in
there.
front of us. I'm like, what if that state of being, that state of consciousness that allows birds to fly together as these individual sovereign beings, but as one mind, one body, and kind of move in and out? What if that's actually where we're headed, and why sometimes, you know, like life is breaking us open? You notice that historically speaking, we often get forced to bond together like that because we have to, because when we have no choice, it's like, all right, let's act like we're one big family right now, unite our resources towards a cause. But to me, it's like, I sometimes say, listen to the whispers before they become screams. So if the scream happens, your body shuts down,
That's
or
right.
COVID happens, or something crazy happens, and then look at the patterns. There's always a group, a multitude of people that wake up in the heart. They're like, you know what? No, we band together in community at large, and then it's like all of this love and extra power is flowing in togetherness. To me, the way I look at that and have for years now is like, okay, if we wind up there and we recognize it as like, this is who we are actually, and the chaos, the catastrophe revealed that to us, what would happen if we listened to the whisper? What if we didn't? What would happen if we also, because obviously there's obvious value in adversity or even chaos or catastrophic events, but what if we also got ahead of it? What if we chose it? What if we decided that, wait a minute, what if we banded together like this because we're choosing it? To me, that's like a quantum portal in human evolution to be like, you know what? Hey, what if this is actually the way?
Oh my gosh. Everybody, I want to just point out what Oren is saying here, you know, because something that I tend to say just, you know, with my group too is listening to that whisper is choosing our growth, right? It's becoming sovereign beings, our own sovereignty, which means, okay, I want to go from the acorn to the oak tree. So I want to listen to that whisper to become more. And in that sovereignty, we can create real unity because we have more flow in us. So we can actually create unity. And in that unity, it's like we can have more common unity. So that's what I hear with the birds, the
Yes.
fish, the schools. It's like, yeah, it's a new type of community that's, you know, it's now more divine. And to me, when we talk about spirituality, it's not this woo-woo thing anymore. It's like it's practicality
100%.
for our reality.
100%. Yes.
So, Oren, I love this. Can when we talk about our divine potential versus our human potential, would you say that what are the traits that make up the divine versus the human? Because that's where the separation is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Different traits, characteristics. Yeah, let's dive into that. So one example is like in human potential. If we look at the human brain and knowledge and how we can store knowledge in our brain. We
Hmm.
can create neural networks in our brain. We have books. We have crystallized knowledge, and we
Yes,
can use that. Obviously, knowledge, especially proper, relevant knowledge, and especially proper, relevant, applied knowledge, has power, right? So
absolutely.
this is why like the information age, distribution of information, technology, replicating information can be so powerful. That's knowledge. That's the known, right? I would
Yes,
say that that is one characteristic of human potential, right?
yes, yes,
Now, when we expand beyond formed knowledge and move into formless, the frequency raises, right? There's information and knowledge that has not even formalized yet. That to me is like where we come into intuition and infinite intelligence. And so, you know, the our divine potential, the divine part of us, you could say our limitless self is not bound by our own knowledge. We have access to infinite intelligence or knowledge because we're not separate from it. And this is why when we're in a flow state or in a state of inspiration, we're a conduit, a channel, a receptivity to intelligence and knowledge that goes beyond even what we have practiced or studied. To me, that isn't that's one very clear distinction of human potential. It's more finite, it's more contained, it has its own predictable built-in restrictions. When we get beyond the I,
yes,
the identity, and this is like the storehouse of our own knowledge. When we get beyond that, then the intelligence of life, of love, of the divine, we start to merge with that intelligence, which is why, you know, then we have this inner knowledge. It's like sometimes like, I don't know how I know that or where that came from. And to our human's like, whoa, that's crazy. That's amazing. I want that. Right. And then sometimes the ego tries to come in and goes, that's me. Let me take the helm again. Right. And then it's like,
exactly.
right. And then you're like, oh, where'd it go? I'm out of the flow. Right.
Can't grasp that.
He's like, whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah, God.
And part of the revelation, at least in my experience, is that there's no need to grasp it because as we keep awakening, we realize, oh, I'm not actually separate from that. Right. And this is why
Love
it's such a key fundamental component to mastering flow beyond all the things that you commonly hear about, like how you can manipulate your brain or your focus or your physiology. Okay, yes, 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 yes. But if we still fundamentally, even unconsciously, believe that we're acquiring the flow, we're, you know, hacking into it like it's somewhere, and then we're hacking into it. If we believe that we're separate from it, to me, you will never reach any level of mastery. even though
Yeah.
mastery is infinite. There's a predictable limit there. So
Bingo. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that's, talking about human potential and divine potential opens up, it's like then there's our soul and there's our intuition and then there's our access to infinite intelligence or God. And that's where even like biblically, when it said with God, all things are possible.
That's right.
So as one comes more into the recognition of unity with that which we call God, then that intelligence of the creator also becomes part of you. Hence the immeasurable increase in your potential. Because now your potential is not just located inside this thing that you call I.
I'm willing to bet, Oren, you've had this experience. You've been like drained in energy, like, oh my gosh, just like the human exhausted. Ugh.
Right.
All of a sudden, either one of your clients calls or, somebody needs help. And all of a sudden, it's something that's like in you, like the coaching and the teaching and the healing and everything. And all of a sudden, boom, instant energy. You
Right.
didn't coffee, you didn't go have a nap. Let me think. It was just like, boom, right here on demand. This energy came in. True or true?
Exactly. Exactly. So it means it was already there, right? So it's like it's there. It seems like it's not. It's there. So even I'm glad you brought that up as an example too, because even trying to measure my potential is without factoring in what we're talking about here. How could we get any measure? Oh, I have this much energy. No, it's finite. And then, wow, something calls me forward. Someone needs my help. And all of a sudden, I have energy. I didn't have it, and then I had it, which means I had it.
Yes. 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 So from my human mind here, it's like, imagine if we can take that finite part of us, okay, the measured energy, that which is sort of crystallized, and then we can unstructure it to just open up into the unstructure,
Right. The
have the divine come in. That would be a tremendous practice. Would you agree?
exactly. And I love that you use the word unstructured because that gives another kind of frame to understand how one can think about this or practice it, or even a distinction. We're talking about human potential, divine potential. When we move into our divine potential, our knowledge and intelligence becomes more nonlinear and unstructured, which is why more intelligence can flow because it's not bumping into the structure.
Yes.
Right. So
Zach, yes. Oh my
right.
God, man.
It's interesting. I had a session with a client a couple of days ago, or an old client of mine who reached out to me to help him with his marketing, right? Little did he know we were going on a spiritual awakening journey that significantly impacted his marketing. And I want to use this as an example
Yes,
because I
please.
was reflecting to him. He was like, "Oh, I have these three ideas," and he's like jazzed about all three of them. He's trying to discern, and he's trying to like, but he's so focused on trying to like find the clarity in the decision and create the container. But his container, his identity, was like trying to hold spirit, like trying to control the energy. So what I reflected to him, I said, like first thing is like zoom out back into the essence again
Yeah.
because you're trying to be receptive to discernment and decision and like direction from your human who can't hold all the energy, and then it's confusing you. But who's getting confused? Yourself, the
That's right.
identity. So
That's
I was
right.
like, the identity, the self that's getting confused and overwhelmed becomes the structure, the limitation. So I was like, step one, just like let go of control in the structure for a moment, and you'll see, first of all, instantly you're not overwhelmed, right? Because it's options, it's energy, right? If there's no control and then you're actually not overwhelmed. Then from there, I was able to help him like read the energy, and then he could see the discernment of the like option one, option two, option three. because he was no longer under the limitations of the identity or the mind.
Absolutely.
Then it became obvious, which choice, and not even he didn't even have to choose one over the other. I said, you can take the essence of this choice, weave it into this one, weave this one here. So now you've just fulfilled all 3 points of these inspiration that you were projecting into the idea. And then now you have the intelligence and the consciousness. So then you can now bring in the strategic and logical mind to design the actual container to fulfill the energy. But I'm like, you were trying to generate, and this is what happens with marketing. This is like
Totally.
supernatural marketing. It's like as soon as we fixate so much on the strategy or the knowledge to the point where we're trying to generate life force energy, energy in motion, that's what we're doing in marketing. We're trying to get people to move towards something, right? To be moved, right? And what was happening with him is because he was doing that from his identity versus his limitless self, I'm like, it's so much more effort. You're trying to generate energy. It's becoming more effortful, more complicated. You're confused. Meanwhile, we went from top down, from inside out, and he's like, oh,
Ugh,
and anything that he speaks, whether it's a blog post, a video, an ad, if it's infused and informed with that frequency of spirit, it has more power. And that's part of the magnetism. That's part of the what is actually drawing people in the first place. So that was another rabbit hole connected to marketing, but it just shows where we can separate spirit and matter, or where we like, oh, hey, I'm an inspiration over here with the idea. And then when it comes to like, oh, now it's time to get in like the masculine and the mind. And like what happens there that limits us is not that we start to focus in the masculine and decision and factor in time. It's that our limitless self goes into the passenger seat and the limited self is like, now I need to be the captain.
I'll take over now.
I'll take right. I'll
And
take
we
over
stop
here.
seeing, we stop
Right.
seeing. And so I think I think that's the world we're moving into, is where we can recognize, and I call it, harmonizing with the unknown zone, with that unstructured.
Nice. I
You
love
can
that.
see that and recognize that with the masculine. It's like, okay, now let's do this, but I'm not going to forget about you.
Exactly.
I think it's
Exactly.
like, boom.
And I want to correlate that with the masculine and
Yes,
feminine.
please.
I see
Yes.
this happening with both men and women, but a
Yep.
lot of really high powered women I'm working with is
Yes.
that when they click into the masculine and the doer and the doing, what's happening is that feminine oracular wisdom, that channel of receptivity starts to dim and starts to close, and then they get exhausted eventually, or they have to work harder, or they can't perceive or receive all the extra power and support that's available to them because they've started to cut off from the feminine, the
Bingo.
from the muse, from the womb, like what that has this massive reservoir of intelligence and power. And then it's like to the degree that that gets cut off, then you're gonna have to double down over here, and then we call that masculine. And this is why I feel like, if we look at performance from a perspective of feminine and masculine, I think we're really at the peak of our potential when they're harmonized. when
Yes.
when we can be in this energy of focus and intention and creation and doing while simultaneously be in this humility, innocence, openness, receptivity, and feminine energy, to me, that's like the quintessential, like that's the height of our potential, right? And we're all men and women, we're all doing this kind of oscillation thing where we like, and it usually comes down to when that imbalance happens or starts to happen, when it's like survival or something like, oh, I need to do now. I need to be the doer, meaning the
Yeah.
identity, the ego structure,
Yes.
and then the feminine, the infinite intelligence, God. It's like, cool, I'll call on you when I need you again or when I'm back in that mode. So I see like that mode is trying to penetrate into our daily life. And that's why I love working with high-powered business people and performers, because they're in reality, they're doing things, and that's where the heavens are trying to hit the earth, is through our practical day-to-day lives, to where we're not compartmentalizing as much, like, oh, I'll be over here in meditation or vacation, but then when it's time to work or time to whatever, then
Close that down
let me
again and
close it down, and then we're like, oh, I'm getting
focus.
exhausted, I'm getting tired, I'm getting whatever. And like literally, like,
Exactly.
it's wild.
Exactly. And you're bringing that full circle to even what I brought up in the beginning, where my failed relationships was I didn't see that feminine. I just, okay, I had to do, I didn't, I started to not witness that part that needed to come in for both of us. So what I hear you saying, Oren, is like, imagine partnerships now that are, all of us can recognize how to open up that unknown zone at the same time with the doing and the creating and the masculine. Like, to
Yeah.
me, exactly, that's that powerful masculine. And now that harmony comes in. And I'm like, dude, this is like, I feel like we're just scratching the surface on this, but you know, we can go on and on, but Oren, this has been incredible. Where can we follow up with you more? Where can we seek you out? Social media platforms, whatever you
Yeah.
got going. How can we tap into you more?
I'm very active on Instagram, and that's at Oren Harris, OrenHarris. My website is also orenharris.com. And then I am Oren Harris on Facebook, which I'm not quite as active. And so Instagram right now is one of the main places to plug in more full spectrum to what it is that I have going on, and to insights and wisdom and things that I'm sharing. I'm about to launch a broadcast channel on Instagram to share more of my like behind the scenes in the lab, stuff that I have in my vault. And when I have time and space, I work with leaders and high performers across different industries. I'm also a creative catalyst. And yeah, those are the places that you can find me, and also find out more about what's going on in my world and what I'm up to.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Oren, thank you so much. This has been just pure magic and genius. So, oh my gosh, such an honor to have you come and grace us and bless us with this today. Amazing.
Thank you so much.